Good morning and welcome. So thank you for being here today. It means a lot to see so many of our familiar faces, friends, family, co-workers, neighbors, coming together for something that really matters to the community. Today we're here to dedicate this sign in honor of Sheriff Richard L. Germond. Now a sign might seem a simple thing, just some letters on the wall, but this one stands for much more. It stands for years of service, long hours, tough calls, and steady commitment to doing what's right, even when it wasn't easy and even when no one was watching. Dick was always the kind of sheriff who believed the badge wasn't about power, it was about responsibility, about showing up, about knowing people by name, about treating folks with fairness, respect, and common sense. He just didn't serve this county, he cared about it. He cared about safety of our families, the well-being of our kids, and the trust between law enforcement and the people we serve. And that kind of service leaves a mark far bigger than any little thing could. This sign is here so that long after today, after we're gone home, people will see his name and remember what it stands for. Dedication, integrity, service to others. On behalf of this community, we say thank you, Dick. Thank you for serving 9 terms in the office for a total of 36 years as Lenawee County Sheriff. Thank you for your dedication as the longest serving sheriff in Michigan and the longest serving sheriff in Lenawee County, 2 records which still stand. And thank you for your sacrifices you made, the leadership you showed, and the example that you set. It's an honor to dedicate this sign in your name, Sheriff Richard L. Germond. May this sign always remind us of what true service looks like. And now Commissioner Krasny will introduce our invocation speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the kind words of a great friend of this community. It is now my distinct honor and privilege to introduce Congressman Tim Walberg, representing Michigan's 5th District of 10 counties here in southern Michigan, a man filled with faith and, more importantly, friendship with Sheriff Germond and his family.
Thank you, Justin. It's 11 counties we represent. Some people think I pay him too much. He looks so good. I guess it's good genes and a good wife. Well, it's great to be with you, and it's great to start this by giving honor to the one who created a guy like Richard Germond. And so let's bow in prayer, if you would, please. We come to you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit today, thanking you that we have people that you have positioned specifically in places that are not easy, that have challenges, that deal with some of the roughest situations that take place because we're human. And we sometimes make terrible mistakes. And things have to be dealt with, and dealt with in a way that is just and hopefully brings about change. And so today we come to remember a gentleman who understood what it was mean to abide by the law, to enforce the law, to respect the law, and to make that law as best as possible something that could change focus and change direction in lives. We thank you for a man like Richard Germond, who had a wife like Carol and a family that supported him in doing significant work for many, many years in this community. We thank you that it had an impact that goes on to this day in a community that is blessed with law enforcement officers and leadership like the sheriff we've seen following Richard to do the job that the community intended for them to do. We thank you as well for his passion for service in so many ways. It didn't end with being a sheriff, but it went on in many ways that I think continue to make impact in this community. So Lord, as we celebrate today, one you created to serve, may we be pushed to redouble our efforts and our motives to serve wherever we can. And do it so that you will give the blessing, and the outcome will be positive for people that you create as well. So we commit this service to you and thank you. In the name of Jesus I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you very much for being here today. It's a true tribute to see so many friends, family here to witness this unveiling. So, Congressman Walberg talked a little bit about change. Change is one of the things, if you talk to any police officer, the first thing they tell you is they hate it when things change, and they hate it when things stay the same. Sheriff Germond, he knew about change, and he knew about the importance of making sure that everyone knew that the police were here to help and that we were here to serve the community. It's interesting because I had the distinct pleasure of serving in Juanas with Sheriff Germond, and of course I have to call him Sheriff every time. That's just one of the things. I can't call him Richard. It's Sheriff. And so many times, I can't think of how many times that we'd be sitting there and somebody would say, "Hey, Sheriff," and of course my head would turn around, and so would Sheriff Welch's head turn around, and so would Sheriff Germond. So to be able to serve with him in that capacity was just absolutely amazing. I remember one time also talking with him, and little words of wisdom. He said, "Make sure that you always command the room when you walk in." And Sheriff Germond did that. So I try to take a little bit of what everyone says and what they impart upon us and myself. Same with Sheriff Welch. So I'm explaining a little bit here because the first thing that he told me is never wear your sunglasses when you're speaking in public or in a parade. And so little things like that, they stick with you. And I'm humbled to be here. I'm humbled to be here when this building is dedicated, and there's going to be a lot of shoes to fill later on in life. To be a sheriff for that many years, 9 terms. So every once in a while I'm asked, what are the 2 stars for? And you may see other sheriffs with stars on their collar. For Sheriff Germond, 9 stars, that would have weighed his whole body down if he would have worn a uniform every day with 9 stars on it. That's absolutely amazing. When I go to sheriff conferences, either the Michigan Sheriff Conference that I'm going to here in a week or 2, or a national conference, they still talk about Sheriff Germond. And there's still people there that remember Sheriff Germond. To leave a legacy like that is absolutely amazing and something that you just don't see anymore and probably never will. So one of the things that stuck with me is Dick didn't let up. He was on the go all the time. And there was one time that my wife and I were in town, and we were going to stop over at Sheriff Germond's house, and I walked up and met Mary halfway out and said to Mary, I'm here to talk to Dick about some signs. And Mary yelled in and said, "Hey, the sheriff's here to see you." Without a beat, Sheriff Germond looked out and said, "That's not my sheriff. My sheriff would have never changed from brown to black uniform." I lowered my head and said, "Yes, Sheriff." Change is inevitable, but some things you gotta keep in your heart, and things like a long-serving sheriff is something that we'll never forget. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over. I told the Commissioner Van Dorn that I keep it to less than an hour, and so I'll turn this over to Sheriff Welch.
Thank you. I guess I better elaborate on that a little bit. The uniform thing. He was big on uniforms, and I wore a suit today just to be down and keep an eye on it. But, just a little joke here.
when the undersheriff twisted my arm and decided we would let the officers on the road wear ball hats instead of their lids. I was at a Kiwanis meeting one day, and I had my ball hat on, and we were walking out, getting ready to leave, and Germond saw that hat, and he walked up to me and said, "What in the hell are you doing? Going to a baseball game?" Anyway, Sheriff Germond was an icon in the sheriff world and a mentor to me. I hired him in 1973 and worked with him till 2001. And on a personal note, my dad died when I was 26, and he kind of my father figure. He tried to keep me in line over the years. Didn't always work, but I just want to. Everybody's going to say a little bit about it, but I want to focus a little bit on his presidency as a national sheriff. And just stop and think about that. All the sheriffs in the United States and the organization that represents them, and he was the president of the National Sheriff's Association. And that's just the highest honor I think you could get as a sheriff. I was able to go to several national conferences. In fact, I ran for the board a couple of times and he guided me. I wasn't very successful, but to see him, even after he retired, the National Sheriff's Association still kept him on committees for a while. So I just, that was just, to me, the greatest thing that he probably achieved. I want to talk just a little bit about this building and what significant is to have his name on it. We went through a lot of stuff to get this building built. I mean, when I hired in '73, we did a remodel of the jail, I think it was 74, 75, and it was okay, it was nice, and a new dispatch center. And then it started to deteriorate, and the jail was built down here separate after he retired. But we went through so many battles that he did over the years early on when they were trying to decide, are they going to build a new complex, where they were going to build it. Nobody could agree. Politics got involved, money got involved, but nobody fought harder to get a new building than he did. And so I was really proud, and I wouldn't have retired had we not had this building, so that the people that work there had a nice place to live. And so I think that's really significant to have his name on it. And I really hope that some of the younger employees here, well, who the heck is Dick Germond? Maybe they'll Google him and read about him and see what a hero he was. But he fought for years for this building, and it family. I've been part of this family for, I think, back in the day when Mrs. Germond would pull up in her Woody station wagon with a load of bread, and all of us would go down, and including the kids or the trustees, and unload the wagon. So for me personally, with his name on the side of this building means a lot. So thank you, Commissioner, for allowing this to happen and allowing me to speak. Thank you.
I just want to say what an honor it is to be able to speak here today to represent our legend, our hero, Sheriff Richard Germond. He hired me twice, first in 1989 as a reserve sheriff's deputy, and then again in 1990 as a full-time dispatcher to serve in the dispatch center that he created, that he was so proud of. And I soon learned exactly why he was so proud of it. He was known so well across the state. We couldn't go anywhere, and of course, well, he later promoted me twice. I ended up in the road patrol and then a road patrol corporal. So I went all around the state to trainings, and everywhere I would go, as soon we'd always introduce ourselves and say where we're from. Oh, Sheriff Germond. Everybody, always. He was so popular. And of course, serving as the president of the Michigan Sheriff's Association and the National Sheriff's Association, the guy was very popular. But we're so proud of him. I learned so much from him. What a great leader he was. But the other thing about him was he got to know us all personally. He not only knew what his employees, he knew about us, but he got to know our families. He could name all my family members. And
not just me, but everybody. You know, what a phenomenal guy. He very smart, very quick on his feet. You could never top him. If you had something to say and you thought you were going to get him on something, nope, he was ready and he was going to, he definitely had you. So I remember one day my wife and I were in town and we said, let's just stop by the sheriff's office. You know, just stop by and see what's going on. And little did I know he had a special guest. No idea. So I come walking in and just kind of normal, talk to a few people, and Sheriff Germond comes around the corner and he goes, oh, hey Dave, I want you to meet somebody. So with him was the governor of Michigan, the current governor, John England. Just stopped in for a visit, and so Sheriff Germond introduced him to my wife and myself, and we shook his hand, and just the governor stopping in at the sheriff's office to visit with the sheriff. You know, that's phenomenal. But he was so well known. You know, I just can't express how well he was known across the state. So for me, moving up through the ranks at the sheriff's office, I always respected his leadership, and I always tried to do what Sheriff Germond would do. You know, he always did the right things for the right reasons. Such a fair man, he really was. And of course, with him knowing so many people, it was very hard to be on road patrol and go out and deal with the public when everybody knows Sheriff Germond, and of course he knows them, and you know, so they kept us on our feet. So you know, we knew that he knew everybody, but the one thing about it is, as long as we went out and did our job and we were fair about it, he stood behind us 100%. Even if we had to do something that maybe wasn't popular with one of his friends. But he would look at it, and if we did things by the book, he was right behind us. So I just want to say what an honor it was to serve with Sheriff Germond. I am so glad that his name is going on this building. He is so deserving of it. I wish that all the sheriff's deputies that we have currently would have had a chance to work with Sheriff Germond. I'm so honored that I was working with him. I can't say enough good things about Sheriff Germond, but I think he's looking down on us today, and he knows we're here. He knows we're dedicated him. And look at this audience. So many people. I'm so happy to see this. Thank you.
It was a little tougher for me. I wasn't a deputy. So I do want to say, in 1980, I had the honor and privilege to be selected as the police chief for the city of Adrian. The first call I received from anybody in law enforcement was Dick Germond. These are one of the icons of law enforcement. And Harvey South was here when I was a patrol officer there. They were the icons of law enforcement in Lenawee County. And I would be sitting in the same room. But at 33 years old, I was a youngster. I had no administrative experience, a bit of supervisory experience, and I needed help. So I called Dick and I said, I need a mentor. Anytime, any place, call me. So I did meet him several times and got several pieces of information and advice from him that was helpful. But the one thing Dick said to me that carried throughout my career with me, he said, Terry, one thing I want to tell you, don't be the chief they want you to be. Be the chief you must be. And I carried that with me forever. That and my father's advice, don't forget where you came from. And I was born and raised on Erie Street. The sheriff's wife was on the east side also, on the hill. Dick was a giant of a man in law enforcement. I went through the FBI National Academy many years back, and the head of the National Sheriff's Association was there. I just happened to bump into him. We were chatting, and he saw my name tag. He said, Adrian, Michigan? I said, yes. I said, Dick Germond. That's how I know him. He was a font of information for me. From the day I started to the day he left, he was a font of information. And I owe a great deal of any success I had, Dick Germond. We spoke together someplace on occasion. We were often introduced as the long and the short of it. No pun intended. And Dick was a little bit shorter than me, but he was a giant of a man in stature. Everybody involved in law enforcement knew Dick Germond. I'm going to leave you with a couple of quips about Dick that were rather funny. I see several of us, all the Kiwanians out here, raise your hand. Several of them. I'm sure the older ones and the longer tooth remember Peanut Day. Dick and I were working downtown one time on Peanut Day, and for those of you who don't know, we would sell these little packets of peanuts that had about 4 peanuts in them, and take a donation for the people coming through. And we went there. Dick and I had the advantage of wearing badges on our belt, so we would stop people at green lights, not to get a donation. Well, he stopped this one individual who gets rather terse when he ain't buying the interview or so-and-so peanuts. I don't need them, I don't want them, let me go. But Dick happened to notice there's a bottle set between the guy's legs. He also noticed this fellow, he knew that this fellow was on probation. It was an open bottle of beer. So Dick said, "What is that you have on your lap there?" And he looks up there like, "Oh my God, he's got me." So I said, "Well, how about if I just buy one of those bags of peanuts?" Usually somebody would heard about $2, whatever. He said, "How much are they?" Dick said, $20. And he gave it. Another quick quip and I'll let it go. We were coming back from Ann Arbor one time from a law enforcement meeting. There was myself, Dick Germond, Under Sheriff Merlin Mowry, and Captain Bruce Lucy in the car. Just as we got west of Clinton, there was this car all over the road in front of us, just going from burn to burn. Obviously intoxicated. Captain Lucy radioed it in, and the car then turned north on 52, and followed. Shortly after, a Washtenaw County deputy stopped it, walks back to us, he said, "You people call this in?" "Yep, we are." And he heard our radio critical. He said, "Are you guys cops?" We said, "Oh, you have a sheriff, an undersheriff, captain, and a chief of police." So he walked up to the guy in the car, he said, "Buster, you have had a bad day." But when Dick was gone, I not only lost a mentor, I lost someone who could teach me what I needed to be taught, who helped me where I needed it. But I lost a friend. Thank you.
We have a tribute to be presented by Congressman Walberg.
Boy, it's great hearing those stories. Brought back a lot of memories. Not of the pullovers and tickets. I'm glad that that one. And the sheriff didn't let me off. Let me make that very clear. I don't think any of the sheriffs have let me off. But, it's great to be here. And we were in D.C. this morning, and the alarm went off at 3:15, and I said, "What in the world?" And then I remembered I was going to get to come back, because the Senate went home yesterday and didn't get their work done, so I could be here for Carol and all of you folks and be able to present officially a congressional record statement that I was privileged to give on the floor of the House in honor of Sheriff Germond. But Sue and I, we moved here in 1978 from Chicago. A little different place here. But we so glad that God gave us the opportunity to move to Lenawee County and be here from then till this day. I think about the fact, coming from the south side of Chicago, I had the opportunity to meet titans in industry with the last names of Herrick and Marillac and Farver, and I could go on down the list, Hickman, Kapnick, interesting people like Bob Sage and Jens Goldberg. I wouldn't have had that opportunity. But none really made any greater impact in my life, especially coming with the opportunity to be a representative of this county and the State House of Representatives, to have an opportunity to get around the community and meet other people who would begin to shape and mold me First time I showed up at the Adrian noon meeting, Sheriff Germond was something I didn't realize they did in clubs like that. He was the fine giver. I was laughing at all the people who are getting fines for the crazy things that he would come up by, I guess, with his feet up on the desk in the old sheriff's building, reading through, trying to figure out what Kiwanian he could attack. Did a great job with a lot of humor, and I enjoyed it. Till he said, oh, we have State Representative Tim Walberg here. Fine, you're fine. And I made the mistake of saying, Sheriff, why? Why would you fine me? For being a politician. Why wouldn't I fine you? And that began a long tenure of having a chance to look at a guy, as you've mentioned, his stature was large. Not only in the community of law enforcement, and every one of my, including the one Democrat sheriff in my district of 11 counties, they all know Sheriff Germond. Even the younger ones have known it from the history. Long serving in national office, serving in state office. But it wasn't only that. What I appreciated was he went beyond what he did for law enforcement and leading what went on here and working together with all of the law enforcement community, whether it was the city police or whether it was the state police and everything that was there. He committed himself to things that I'm interested in as chairman of the Education Committee in Congress. He was all about education as well on the ISD board, and wanted to see young people go the right way and get an education that made a difference for them in the future. That always impressed me, that a guy that oftentimes dealt with some of the toughest issues in society and some of the toughest people in society who had chosen to go the way they went and weren't willing to take the opportunity maybe to change even. And yet there was a guy who had a spirit about him that said, we don't give up. We may not get all of them, but we'll get the ones we can. And so I appreciated that about him. I also appreciate the fact that I never had an opportunity to get the last word around Sheriff Germond. As someone mentioned, he had that quip that could come back. And I had some good comebacks too. But he still got me to the point that I'd have to just give up. But today I get the last word. And so let me read these words that I had the privilege to state before the U.S. House on Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. Mr. Speaker, I rise to honor the life and legacy of longtime Lenawee County Sheriff Richard Germond, who sadly passed away Wednesday morning at 90 years of age. Sheriff Germond joined the department when he was 21 years old and ultimately served as Lenawee County Sheriff for 36 years, making him Michigan's longest serving sheriff. He also was a member of the Lenawee Intermediate School District Board of Education for 25 years, supporting students in our community. Sheriff Germond is a hero in every sense of the word and will be remembered as a model sheriff and a leader to many. Mr. Speaker, Sheriff Germond was a prominent member of the Lenawee community, and we honor him for his service and commitment to keeping us all safe. He'll be sorely missed, and his impact on our community will be felt for generations to come. Carol, thank you for sharing Sheriff Germond with us. Thank you for being that support base that allowed him to be who he was, and you could clean up what was left behind at times. Thank you for taking charge of your family and making sure that that went well, and remain an example for this community. And thank you for loving him in a lifelong love that demonstrated to a lot of us what really makes a difference in life. God bless you, and thank you for Sheriff Germond.
Thank you, Congressman. And now, Carol, we're going to make you go to work. And you're going to come up here and join me, and we're going to do a little countdown here. We're going to have the group count down with you, and we'll see what happens when we get to one. Okay? Everyone join in with 5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
Speaking on behalf of the family will be Lynn Blackcomb.
Good morning to everyone. On behalf of the Germond family, we would like to thank all of you for taking the time to be here on this very special occasion to honor our father, Richard L. Germond, who was a dedicated public servant, devout man of God, loving father to his 5 daughters, and partner in his life to his wife, Carol. Our father taught us many vital lessons growing up, which wasn't always by instruction, but more by example in the way that he lived his life. He was a humble man, even though he was larger than life in the eyes of many who knew him and worked with him throughout his tenure in law enforcement and service to his community. Dad was not one to toot his own horn. Instead, he continued to focus on contributing in whatever way he could to his profession, his community, and especially his family. To us, he was our protector, our mentor, and loving father, who was always there, no matter what, for each and every one of us. Dad was known for running a tight ship. He was very proud of the department he had built and harbored a deep admiration for the hard-working men and women who contributed to the successes of the department. It could be said that his family extended well beyond the nuclear family as a result of the long-lasting relationships and loyalty that was cultivated with his employees. Many became what we considered extended family members to our family. It only seems fitting that we acknowledge the contributions of those hardworking men and women. So we want to thank you all from the bottom of our hearts. Some whom we speak of have since passed, and some are still with us and very, very much a part of our family today. There are so many wonderful memories over the last 36 years that our father served the sheriff. Too many to recall today, but I can tell you that I speak for all my family when I say that we were blessed to witness the level of respect that was shown to our father throughout his years in the profession, not only on a local level as the sheriff of Lenawee County and chairman of the board of Bixby ProMedica Hospital, but also statewide across the law enforcement community for which he contributed to. In the state of Michigan, as the president of the Michigan Sheriff's Association, an active member, and on a larger scale as the president of the National Sheriff's Association. He was well respected and revered as a man who when he spoke, led to profound resolution or contribution. I wanted to share also that at a pivotal height in his career, Our father was offered the position of Executive Director of the National Sheriff's Association, a position of leadership in the country that serves as the Chief Administrative and Strategic Officer, overseeing the day-to-day operations of the organization, acting as the primary voice for all sheriffs across our nation in Washington, D.C., driving policy, strategic planning, legislative efforts, and training initiatives on behalf of our nation's elected sheriffs. He declined the position when he found out he would have to uproot his family and move us all to Washington, D.C., and leave the community that he so loved and served for so many years. Again, putting his service to the community as well as his family first, not wanting to disrupt our education, friendships, and growth, even though it was a position that he had worked hard for and earned. In closing, I'm sure that many of you here today will agree there isn't a man more deserving of this honor in having the Lenawee County Sheriff's Office building named after Richard L. Germond. Before I close, I thought I'd just tell a couple of stories here that that were shared with me through former employees and actually current employees. Just funny stories that give you a taste of Dad's character. This was a previous employee that made a post on the day that Dad passed away. Hopefully I can see this. Sheriff Germond passed away today. He was Lenawee County's icon, serving as sheriff for something like 56 years. She was only off by 20 years. That's okay. When I applied for the job at the jail a million years ago, I had an interview with him. I remember him looking at my resume for a few moments, and I can see this, and you guys can too. Looking at my resume for a few moments, and then he leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and said to me, I believe your brother spent some time here." I became instantly annoyed, and we all know what a good poker face I have. Is that it wasn't the first time that anybody had made comments along those lines. Teachers, principals, local cops. I sighed and said, well, he's not the one sitting here and applying for the job. I am. I figured at that point the interview was over. But he just chuckled and said, "You're right. He isn't. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?" I won't tell you that we became best personal friends. I don't think that he ever said another word to me after that interview, other than maybe in the hallways if we happened to pass each other. But I did end up getting the job. Thanks, Sheriff Germond, for being a fair enough man to at least let me prove or disprove myself on my own. Godspeed. One more funny story before I close. This is a current employee, actually. Won't name any names, but I worked through the school system, and her son was one of my patients, she thanked me for taking care of her son, and she said, I said something about my dad or something. "Are you kidding me? That's your dad?" She said, "Oh my gosh, I love Sheriff Germond. I love him." She said, "I'll never forget." She said one time, she said, "Boy, he ran a tight ship, you know, she said, I lived on a farm. We lived on a farm. She said, I tried to hurry, get to work. She said, I running around doing my chores in my slippers and feeding the chickens and trying to get to work on time. She said, I come in and I'm talking to some of the gals, you know, and they said, well, you better hurry up. Sheriff Germond's coming down the hall. You got slippers on. And she said, oh, good Lord. So she ran to the desk and sat down real quick and tucked her feet under. Dad comes around the corner, says good morning to everyone, walks past her, and she thought she had pulled one over on him. And then he turned around and said, oh, by the way, nice slippers. So that was kind of cute. As a family, we would like to personally thank the Lenawee County Board of Commissioners for unanimously voting to bring our family's dream to life. We know our Father is looking down from heaven with humble pride in his heart and a smile on his face at such a historic honor for his affirmation of contributions, not only to his community, state, and nation, but to all those he touched in a personal way over his many years of service. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. As we conclude today's dedication, we're reminded that this building represents more than its walls. It reflects the values of those it honors. By dedicating this space in the name of Richard L. Germond, we ensure his legacy of service, integrity, and commitment to community endures. May all who enter here be inspired by his example, and may this building stand as a lasting tribute to a life that made a difference. Thank you for all of you that participated today. Thank you for all showing up and joining us in both this dedication and celebration. Enjoy your weekend.